Before we kick off our keynote, ladies and gentlemen, just got to put that up on camera right there. If you're not watching, maybe you're listening, you got to check out the video because I've got perfect sourdough here, which will tie into the keynote like I promised. But first, let's take our bite. All right, the first thing we're going to be talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is AI. AI is your assistant. It is not your replacement. Kind of hard to kind of think about that and really, really let that sit and marinate, but you got to think it's a tool. It is not your replacement. It can be a way for you to generate things to support your curriculum in the classroom, but it's not there to take the place of you, the teacher. Tools like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude, all these other tools, they're amazing tools. They're great for differentiating instruction, maybe speeding up the planning process, but keep the curriculum intact with pedagogy, purposeful pedagogy, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's all about. It's not about using AI tools because of the novelty or because of the fact that maybe others are using them as well, and you just kind of want to be ahead of the curve or at the curve with some of your teammates. It's not there to do that. It's there to support the curriculum that you or your district have adopted. So with that being said, remember, use it in alignment with your curriculum. It is not a replacement. And just a real quick reminder, busy work doesn't exactly mean engagement. That's not the case sometimes at all. Let's use AI to actually make some real learning happen, not filler. So rather than taking something that you get from AI and using it as is, set in stone, you're not making any changes to it, take an idea that it will give you and output to you and see how you can modify that to fit your curriculum and what your students need at that appropriate time. Now, with that being said, I'm going to give you a couple of pro tips for AI uses. So some of my favorite things to do with AI, or at least some of the things that I show teachers all the time when I support, is drafting parent emails. It doesn't necessarily mean taking that email as is, as gold, and hitting send. Drafting parent emails, looking over them, getting a second set of eyes at times, running it through your admin or through a grade level chair or something like that, and using those filters. That way, instead of spending maybe 15 minutes drafting a parent email, use a good prompt and get it done in 2 to 3 minutes. And then, let's say it takes 3 minutes. You've technically saved 12 minutes. Cut that in half. Take those 12 minutes that you saved, cut it in half to 6, and spend that much more time editing, revising, putting your own voice, your own flavor on the email. That way it's a little bit more natural, and you used AI as kind of like a springboard to get the process started. Another thing that you can use AI for really well this year is creating those outlines or maybe some rubrics. Rubrics are, I don't know if you guys remember some of the other sites like Rubistar and things like that, or even trying to come up with your own rubric. All these tools now have these rubric generators built in. So one thing to remember is bad data in equals bad data out. In other words, if you give an AI tool a horrible prompt with horrible parameters for a rubric, you're going to get a horrible rubric, and you're going to get called out on it by a student, by admin, by a parent. So just remember, bad data in equals bad data out. A couple things you don't want to use AI for. What you don't want to do with AI is have it just auto-generate a complete lesson for you. In other words, don't put this unit or this standard or this Texas TEK or whatever they call it in your particular state. Don't drop it into an AI tool and have it just create this lesson from beginning to end with the filler and everything that you quote unquote need, and use it as is. Don't do that. You're going to get yourself in trouble, and more than likely the ones who are going to suffer the most are the students. And then ultimately you, because you're going to have to reteach, unlearn your students something that they didn't learn correctly because you took something that was just completely generated through the use of artificial intelligence and you didn't put a lens on it. You didn't put your own filter on it. You didn't put your own touch on it. or your particular needs for your students. So always, always, always make sure that you get ideas from AI, but don't just have it generate complete lesson plans for you. And then making AI do the thinking for all your students, let's not do that. If your district is in a situation where your students have access to AI, maybe you're at the secondary level, don't use tools or use them in a way where students are not doing any of the thinking. We want to stay away from that, and we want to make sure that our students are using AI to make themselves think more critically of things. So when you're using tools, make sure that it's not replacing the thinking on behalf of your student. Now, we talked a little bit about AI. Let's talk about some of our favorite tools. But before we do that, let's take another bite of this delicious sourdough bread. It's all going to tie in at the end, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry why the heck I'm eating on camera or why I chose sourdough. It's all going to come together in the end. I promise you. That's damn good sourdough. Some of our favorite tools. Google Classroom. If you attended ISTE 2025 here in San Antonio, Texas, number one, a big shout out to you. And if you went to any of the events or any of the sessions that I held or was a part of, then an extra shout out to you. Maybe I'll throw in a piece of sourdough for you later. But if you did attend, then you'll know that one of the hot topics at ISTE was all the updates coming to Google Classroom, specifically with Gemini. Gemini is now being built in to Google Classroom and is being rolled out through Google, depending on your district, depending on whether they opted in or not. A couple of things are changing. Students, regardless of age now, are going to be having the ability to have AI in their hands. So talk to your district administration, your Google administrators, your executive directors, and that to see where you guys are in that process. But Gemini is coming to Google Classroom if it's not already there by the time you're listening to this. What does that mean? Well, if you're familiar with Notebook LM, Notebook LM is a part of Google's ecosystem. And it's a way in which, and it's a system in which you can build your own chatbot for you to access. For example, if I'm doing research on, let's say sourdough, and I pull up a couple of websites, 3 YouTube videos, and let's just say a bunch of different recipes and Q&A and forums and maybe some Reddit articles about sourdough, I can drop all of those resources into Notebook LM, and I've got a video on that, so make sure you check out the YouTube video and YouTube channel, and you can basically create your own chatbot where it'll only refer to those sources that you put in. So if I put in 12 sources on sourdough, YouTube videos, articles, Reddit posts, and things like that, it'll only access those documents, and I can ask that chatbot questions based on all the sources I gave it. Great resource. Love it. Like I said, check that video out on the YouTube channel. However, Notebook LM is coming to Google Classroom, if not already there. What does that mean? That means that you could build a notebook for your students with Notebook LM being built off of the backbone of Google Gemini. And you can give your students access to that particular notebook. So if I'm a culinary teacher and I put together these 12 sources on sourdough bread because our students are going to learn about leavening agents when it comes to baking, and I put in these 12 sources and I build this beautiful, beautiful notebook in Notebook LM, I can give students access directly in Google Classroom to access that notebook, and they can then prompt and ask Notebook LM questions based on my sources, and that way they're kind of confined into my own ecosystem based on the sources that I gave it. That is coming, if not already here, ladies and gentlemen. Give that a look. Look it over, ask your district admin about access to that, and maybe they put a pause on it. Maybe they're worried about rolling it out because we don't want students to have access to AI or what have you. But check your administration and see where that is. One of the other updates that was actually pre-ISTE is quizzes is no longer their name, completely rebranded. Now they are Wayground AI. So check that out if maybe you have a paid account and you haven't really looked at it since May 2025. There's some changes. There's some rebranding. Now's the time to get a head start, checking out these tools. kind of before the year starts, start kind of clicking and rummaging through those new tools, because during ISTE, which is technically the end of June, beginning of July, a lot of the tools that we know and love and use get those major updates. They usually make those announcements at ISTE, and then about August 1st is usually when those updates come out. And like I said, two of the big ones is Gemini within Google Classroom, also Notebook LM in Google Classroom, and then quizzes now being rebranded to Wayground. Check that out, kind of like pre-season before the season really begins, and start kind of going through, looking where these new buttons are, where the new menus are, if there is. Maybe something that was paid is now free or vice versa. So check that out now. So we've discussed AI. We've discussed some of the tools and the updates and how to kind of get ahead of the game. Let's take another bite of our sourdough real quick. And the last thing that I'd like to discuss with you is preparation. Preparation is the best classroom vibe to have and set the tone, not only for the day, but for the year. Here's what I mean. Your morning routine sets the tone for you. You, as an educator, set the tone for the building and the room you walk into and those who you communicate with throughout that building. Your energy gives off your vibe. Your vibe gives off your energy. If you are calm and centered, your students feel it. When your systems are in place, your brain can really focus, and that's when the magic happens. Connections, creativity. I'm going to go back to connections. Your students will not learn a thing from you. I don't care how good you are at your content, how well you know it, how well you can explain physics or how to multiply 2-digit numbers by 3-digit numbers. It makes no difference if you cannot make connections with your students. And the only way to make connections with your students is to be in the moment, calm, relaxed, and making sure that you're meeting their needs. If you come in hot, you're coming in hot and spicy from something that might have happened in the morning or the night before, your students are going to feel that energy. They're going to take that and carry that because you're going to transfer that to them, and learning is not going to take place. You're going to be kind of in defensive mode the whole time, as are they. So the way you walk in, how you conduct yourself, and how you go about in your morning creates you, which create your environment. So a couple of tips on that. I have a challenge for you, specifically 3 challenges for you, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what I'd like for you to try this year. Maybe you try it for a week and it works for you and you keep it up. Maybe you try it and it just doesn't work out. Either way, give it a shot. Lay out your outfit the night before. It's really difficult to get ready in the morning, do what you got to do, get your kids ready, make sure that everyone has their lunches, make breakfast, all that stuff. And for you to be ready to go out the door by 6:20, 6:30 while trying to pick out an outfit. And then this always happens. The one that you want to pick, the one that's ready to go, is the one that's not ironed. And you got to crank on the iron, and then you walk away from the iron for a couple of minutes and you realize you didn't put any water in it, or it's going to stain your clothes because there's old water in there. Pick out your outfit the night before. If it's not pressed or ironed or steamed, do that the night before. Challenge number 1, have your outfit ready to go the night before. System number 2 to make your mornings just a little bit better. Have your slides or your digital tools or whatever it is you're going to be using, whatever worksheets, opened before you get there, okay? Before your students walk in. Before your students walk in, have that stuff ready to go. Don't open things up as your kids walk in, as your students walk in. You're going to get an update. You're going to get some sort of error message. It happens. It's I forgot Murphy's Law. Anything that can go bad will go bad, kind of thing. So take the time to make sure you have everything open in that before your students walk in. And then my last one for you guys is take just 3 to 5 minutes before school starts. Coffee, with your music, do whatever you got to do and get in the mental space, before students come in the door or before you go outside to pick up your students. Take a couple minutes, take them to yourself. For some of us, those might be the only 3 minutes you get the entire day because you're in go mode the entire day. So take a couple minutes and get ready. Mentally prepare. Mentally prepare to take care and teach other people's children. Think about that for a minute. Remember, you are the vibe. A happier you equals happier students, which equal learning, and your students deserve the best from you. I'm going to go back to that outfit the night before. I'm going to challenge you a bit further and say, have your breakfast and lunch at least planned and ready to go. And if you need a quick recipe for overnight oats, I got you, ladies and gentlemen. Check out my YouTube channel and the blog at techbites.com. Check it out because I've got a great recipe you can make the night before. Only takes a couple minutes and it'll hold you down for quite a bit of the morning. So with that being said, I did tell you a little earlier that this sourdough is like full circle. And honestly, this keynote is kind of based around this sourdough. So it's confession time, ladies and gentlemen. I had this beautiful sourdough that I created in spring break of 2025. For me, that's March. I believe it was like March 13th or something of 2025. And I started this and it blossomed and I was making sourdough bread left and right. I took a trip to Seattle to co-present at a conference with Michelle Cummings from Brisk Teaching. It was an awesome time. Had a great turnout with administrators in Brisk Teaching and AI. But while I was there, I completely forgot to inform my family on what to do with my sourdough starter. So, long story short, killed it. Killed the sourdough. Came back covered. I'm talking hundreds of flies and gnats within that thing. I had so much time and energy and flour and water into that thing that it was really difficult for me to do that. But needless to say, I'm starting another one, and make sure you check out my YouTube channel because I've got the videos on there. But sourdough is kind of like a metaphor for this school year. You have to be patient. At first, your starter is just flour and water, not too much going on, but you have to trust the process. And if you feed it with intention, if you feed it with care and consistency, it's kind of like your classroom culture. You're going to grow something really, really well and beneficial. Some days it bubbles with energy, that sourdough and your classroom. Some days not so much, but if you nurture it, it will rise. All right. And if it all goes sideways, you can clean it out, take what you learned, and begin over again the next day. This time you have wisdom on your side. So whether you're feeding your sourdough or preparing your classroom slides or meet the teacher in your classroom, remember that great things start small, messy, and slow. But with the right care, they turn into something pretty amazing. And also, carbs help. So this year, ladies and gentlemen, you're not just showing up, you're stepping out with heart, strategy, and a little help from maybe some technology and some tools. And remember that I'm always in your corner as well. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and the show. Reach out to me because you are not alone, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot do this alone. You've got tools, you've got talent, and you've got a community of cheerleaders behind you who want you to make your students succeed. Now, let's make this school year manageable, but memorable. Have a great school year. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, buen provecho. That's the keynote for the 2025-2026 school year. I'm taking my last bite of my sourdough, and I got to go feed my sourdough starter so I don't kill this one either. Buen provecho, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great school year.